I broke this course into 3 distinct sections. The first one being the Node.js architecture. 2 pieces really in the Node.js architecture. The V8 engine, which is the JavaScript runtime. That's how JavaScript is interpreted and even compiled in certain cases and executed. And the second piece is the libuv library, which is the I/O library. Anything related to I/O, desk, how to do DNS, how to do TCP, how to do UDP, and of course HTTP, which sits on top of TCP, right? All of this is done in this particular library. So this is the architecture of Node.js. And really, the main concept that we're going to discuss in this topic is the event loop. We're going to dive into each phase of this event loop and then go from there. The second section is the Node.js internal section. Now that we know kind of on broad the architecture of Node.js, now we dive deep into each piece of this architecture. How does the libuv itself work? What is that really? How is the I/O? How is the asynchronous and synchronous I/O is executed in Node.js? How does Node do their network I/O? How does that really work in conjunction with this library that is libuv, right? How does Node HTTP work behind the scene? Like any piece of protocol that we're gonna pick it, we just gonna dive deep inside this protocol and understand exactly how Node does it. Node HTTP. Have you ever built applications with Express? This is all syntaxical sugar. We know we're building something at that level. We're going deep into how we actually a Node server is spin up, because everything goes down eventually at that layer, right? And understanding that is the key to understanding how Node.js works. We're going to understand Node.js HTTPS. This is going to be a long lecture, Node HTTPS. We're going to dive into how TLS works, right? And how certificates, we're going to spin up an HTTPS Node.js server. We're going to understand what a certificate is, what the root certificate is, what the what certificate authorities is. Why do you need all of these pieces? I try as much as possible never introduce anything in this course unless I explain it fully. We're going to talk about Node DNS, TCP, UDP, and one of the most important concepts, Node streams. Yes, all of these protocols kind of intermingle together into an abstraction in Node.js that's called streams. What is that? Node streams. We're going to talk about that. And of course, in this lecture, in this section, the Node internals, it's not going to be Node internals if we don't talk about processes and threads. We're going to talk about the worker threads in Node.js, how to spin up your own thread, and how do you communicate with each other, these Node threads. Right? And we're going to talk about processes too, right? How can you spin your own child process? And understanding that communication between processes is a little tricky compared to threads, because that is the basic understanding of how operating systems deal with threads versus processes. Isolation versus a little bit of more shared memory. And then the final section, now that we understand the architecture, the overall architecture, the event loop, now that we understand the internals of every piece of, protocol, library, and processor and threads, now finally, what do? We go into the Node.js optimization and performance tips and best practices. Like, what can I do? Now I understand these things. Only then you can write optimal code. Only then you can debug Node.js optimally. Only then you can see I reached a stage where JavaScript is no longer taking me all the way there. I still want Node.js, but for this piece of module that I wrote, I really want to squeeze more performance out of this module. This is where we learn how to write C++ add-ins and import it in Node.js. Not only that, we're going to debug it. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're jumping from JavaScript debugging to C++ debugging. It's going to be so much fun. And of course, we're also going to learn how to capture traffic coming out of Node.js. We're going to do two methods. First, the Wireshark method. I love this stuff. I love networking. So you're going to see a little bit of a networking here, of course, in this course. So we're going to capture Node.js traffic coming outside of Node.js using Wireshark. And we're going to also capture layer 7 traffic, which is not just layer 1 or layer 2 traffic. We're going to capture also layer 7 traffic, that was HTTP, right? Higher level stuff using man-in-the-middle proxy. So we're going to set up Node.js to talk to a proxy and then capture all these requests. So this is going to be so useful for you guys, especially if you have like a performance bottleneck. You can have Node.js being set up to point the traffic all the way to a proxy and then capture all these traffic, see what are the bottlenecks of what requests are slowing down. So cool stuff. And then finally, one of the things that I want to do is, because Node.js is a runtime, there are many libraries that was built on top of it to handle HTTP requests. And you might have some favorites. Axios is one important one. There's Fetch. There's the vanilla HTTP request and HTTPS request. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a showdown, request performance showdown. I'm going to just run. We're going to build a library, build an application that uses all of them, and they're only tying them. Let's send 100 requests, 1,000 requests, and see how much it takes. So we're going to see how much memory each of these library consumed, and we're going to see how much it took time-wise. Right? And of course, you're going to take this with a grain of salt, but that kind of exercise will help you do your own performance metrics against different libraries, and you can make the best choice. How about we actually jump into this course, you guys?